Hello everyone, my name is Chun Xiong. I'm a partner engineer here at Zoom, and today I'm going to walk you through the video SDK for Linux raw recording sample, which we have published on GitHub. So I'll be walking you some of the prerequisites that you will need, and then I'll be walking through some of the specific features and code sections of this repository. And last but not least, I will talk to you about some of the call to actions to get this up and running. With that, I'll probably start off with the prerequisites. So one of the first things that you want to do is that you want to do a git clone of this project. I'll be dropping you some of these links at the bottom of this YouTube description. All right. Another thing which you will need is that you will need a video SDK account. You can head over to zoom.us/by/video SDK to sign up for a video SDK account. Similarly, I'll be dropping this link at the bottom of this video. The next thing, once you have signed up for a video SDK account, you should be able to head over to marketplace.zoom.us to sign in and download the SDK. So we have a sample app over here, and we have the SDK app over here, right? What we'll need to do next is that we'll need to combine some of the files which are found in GitHub repository and some of the SDK files which are found in Marketplace. So I'll go ahead and build a video SDK app. I have already prebuilt, so I have already populated all these fields. The thing I'll need to go and do is head over to Linux, download the latest SDK. As of this video, the latest version is 1.10.5. So if I go ahead and download this, I can extract it and I will be expected to see something like this. All right. So similarly for the files on GitHub, if I do a git clone, I will see something like this. The first thing I need to do is I need to populate the files which are found from the marketplace into the GitHub repository. So inside my library, all right, inside my Zoom video SDK, I will need to copy Qt libraries, okay, the SO files, okay, over to here. And I will need to do a soft link, or I can also do a duplicate of this file and name it as .so.1. But if I try to do it, you'll complain that say, oh, the file already exists. It should not be allowed. All right. But you need to do either soft link or a duplicate of this file and name it as .1. These are the library files. The next thing we need to copy is the header files. So over on the include folder. All right, same thing under Zoom Video SDK. I'll need to copy from the header folders all of these files over to the right side. All right. And once we have copied them, we are done with populating the SDK files into the GitHub repository. So I'll close this for now. Next, we'll need to open up this repository. You can use the preferred IDE of your choice. The more popular ones are things like Visual Studio Code. I prefer to use Visual Studio, but you can use any text editor or IDE of your own preference. Right. So if I go ahead and open up this in Visual Studio, all right, I'll be presented with something like this. So let me briefly walk you through this repository. So if anytime you're lost, go back to README, right? The README actually goes through step by step of how you can get this up and running. It also talks about some of the identical points that is being done in this video as well. The key thing in this project is that the main starting point happens in Zoom VSDK Linux bot.c++. All right, this is where the code starts to run. All right, so If we go ahead and search for the main method, all right, it can be found all the way at the bottom. Okay, from a high level, what this code does, all right, it will try to search for a file which is called, let me try to show all the files over here. You try to look for a file called config.txt. All right. You try to look for config.txt and try to read the session name, the session token, the password, and some of the control variables. We will be coming to the control variables in a bit. But what exactly is the session name, the session token, and the password? When you are authenticating the SDK, some of the things that you will need is that you will need the SDK credential to sign a signature. All right, so you need the SDK credentials found on Marketplace to sign an SDK signature. So the SDK signature contains useful or essential information which is necessary for you to start a session. So you things like your SDK key, which is under the app key value pair. You need to specify the person joining the session. Is he or she going to be a host or going to be a co-host? You also need the topic of the session. This is unique, right? You can think of it as like a unique identifier, right? Then some other things you can just set them as default, like the version. One of the more important things that we need to take note is the validity time. IAT is like the start time. Expiry is like the expiry of the token, right? Okay, some other fields over here are optional. I'm not going to go into depth on this as they are out of scope for what we are trying to do in this video. So heading back to Visual Studio, all right. Right. This will read the session name, you'll read the generated token, and then you'll read the password, which is necessary for me to either set or to join the session. So there are a key few things that happens in the life cycle of a video SDK in general, right? So first thing, I will need to read the variables or read the settings from the text file, okay, which happens over here, read txt or read text settings. Okay, the next thing which happens is I will try to attempt to join or start a video SDK session. You can think of a session as a meeting, okay, but in video SDK, we use the term session instead of a meeting. So the first thing we need to do in the life cycle, we do things, we will initialize the SDK. Once initialize is done, we will do a join, which is attempting to join a session. And then we will start to manage the session. And the last two things that we do is typically to leave the session and then to clean up the SDK. So there are 5 steps altogether. So we start with init, we join the session, we manage the session, we leave the session, and last but not least, we clean up the SDK. So starting from init, over here, we will create the video SDK object. Okay, we will set some of the domains. All right, do I want to enable the log? Okay, and some of the memory mode. Once this is being init and it is successful, the next thing I want to do is I want to attempt to join a session, right? Join is loosely used over here because in Video SDK, you can either start or join a meeting using the same method, right? The key difference of how do we differentiate is, remember in the signature, the role, if it's set to 1, you will start. Okay, if you set it to 0, you will join. So over here, if you take a look, okay, I'll need to pass in a session name, right? This session name is unique for all the people who want to come into the same session to talk to each other, right? The session password is set by the host. You can choose not to set a password, but if the host sets a password, other people who tries to join as a participant needs to set the same password as well. Okay, I will go ahead and set a username. We'll also put in the signature, which is the token. Remember, just now we used the read text settings to read the signature, right? This is the token over here. So there are a couple of settings over here as well. Do I want to turn on my video by default? Do I want to connect my audio? Or do I want to mute my microphone by default? Okay, these are also set over here in the session context. All right, I'll get into this control variable slightly at the back of this video, but these are some of the things that probably you'll be interested to find out about. All right, so if I move on further down, this is the part where I'll try to attempt to join a session. All right. And once I have successfully joined a session, there will be a specific callback. And manage. All right. So there'll be a specific callback called on session join. Right. This is something that happens when the SDK has successfully joined a session, and this method will be invoked. All right. So we are the part 3 of the lifecycle. Remember, we did init, we did join, and this is the part that we are trying to manage. All right. And this is a good time for me to start to talk to you about some of the control variables which I have at the top of the video, which are some of these variables.